Hello everyone. In this tutorial, we will build a full stack web application using Angular, Tailwind CSS, and Next.js. We will go step by step writing code for each part of the stack. By the end, you will have a functional app with user authentication, data CRUD operations, and automatic deployment. Grab your editor and let's get started. Welcome to the project. Before coding, we need to set up our development environment and project structure. If you have not already, download and install the latest Node.js LTS from the official site that comes with the npm. Verify the installation by running node-v and np-v. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So here in your terminal, you will just run node -v and you can see it will show you a version like this. Similarly, run the command npm-v and you will get the version for the npm. Currently I have 23.4.0 for node and for npm I'm using 10.9.2 version. You can use yarn instead of npm if you prefer. Both will work for this project. Now install Angular's command line tool globally with this command npm install-g at angular/cli. Press enter. This gives us the ng command to scaffold and manage Angular apps. Once it is installed, confirm it's working by running ng space version. If it is installed, then you will see this success message with all of the version details like Node.js version, Angular CLI. Currently, we have the Angular CLI 19.0.6 in this system. We will use the CLI to generate our Angular frontend. Now create a new folder for this project. For example, here I would name it. I will use the command mkdir to create the directory, and the name of the project would be full stack angular-next. Okay. Now let's go to that folder by using the cd command. So inside of it, we will have two subfolders, one for Angular frontend and one for the Next.js backend. This separation keeps frontend and backend code organized. For example, here we will have frontend and backend named folders. We will generate each app in these folders. Actually, when we will run the CLI commands to create the projects, those CLI commands would automatically create those folders for us. Using Angular CLI, create a new Angular project in the root folder that we just created. So run the command ng new frontend standalone. Actually, you don't need to mention the standalone because now by default, it already create standalone projects for you by default. And we also need routing. So I will mention that we need it. And for the style, I just want plain CSS at the moment. Press enter. It is asking me, do you want to enable server-side rendering and static side generation? For this tutorial, we will select no. So as this will generate a standalone specific application, so it will use standalone components instead of the older ng module approach, making the app initialization and component structure simpler. What does standalone mean? In latest Angular, you can create components that don't require being declared in an ng module. The Angular CLI has generated an app component marked with standalone true and bootstrapped it directly in the source/main.ts. Let me show you. The Angular project has been created, so I will just show you by using the ls command that frontend folder has been created. So let's go to the frontend folder, and by using the ls command, you will see the list of all of the files. Let's open this folder in VS Code. For me, this command works, code space dot. You can open it directly from the VS Code as well. All right. This is the Angular project that it has just created. And if you go to the source in the main.ts, this is the bootstrap application function that I was talking about. So this in the latest versions of Angular, this is how Angular creates and starts your applications that allow you to use standalone components. This modern approach streamlines our app configuration. No app module file is needed. We will still be able to set up routing and providers in this bootstrap call. Now let's set up the Next.js backend. So navigate to the main directory that we created earlier. So for that I will use cd -- and use ls. You will notice that we are in the root directory. Now run this command to initialize Next.js. Use npx create -next-app at latest, and the name of the folder or project would be backend, and we need TypeScript enabled in it by default. Press enter. Here it is suggesting that it is going to install 15.2 version of Next.js. Just press Y to confirm. Now it is asking, would you like to use ESLint? I can use yes. And for the Tailwind CSS, we don't need it because we are going to use Next.js just for the API development. So just press no. And would you like to like your code inside the source directory? Let's just select the default option. Would you like to use app router? Yes, that is also recommended. Would you like to use TurboPack? Yes. Would you like to customize the import alias? Just press no. So this uses the Next.js CLI to create a new app named backend in the backend folder with TypeScript configured, which is recommended for Angular and Next. When asked, you can opt out of the example app. We will build our own logic. Our Next.js project will serve as an API server using Next API routes. Plus, it can optionally render pages if needed. In this tutorial, we will focus on the backend API aspect with Next serverless functions. At this point, you have two separate apps. The Angular app in frontend will run on its dev server, and the Next app in backend will run on its own dev server. The Angular app would be running on localhost at 4200 port, and the backend server Next.js would be running on port 3000. We will make them communicate via HTTP requests. The backend project has been installed. Let's quickly go to the backend folder and open it in a separate VS Code instance. This is the generated code for the Next.js app. Before diving into code, here is a quick overview of our tech stack and what we will build. First, we will build Angular frontend, that is a single page application, also called SPA, using Angular standalone components for UI. We will use Angular router for navigation, for example, login page, dashboard page, and Angular HTTP client to call our backend APIs. The UI will be styled with Tailwind CSS, a utility-first CSS framework for a modern look and responsive design. Then we will build the Next.js backend that will handle our backend with API routes, that would be serverless functions. We'll set up a connection to PostgreSQL hosted on Vercel's cloud to persist data. The backend will implement CRUD operations on a sample data model. We will use posts as an example and handle user authentication using JWT, that is also called JSON Web Tokens. We will secure this API using JWT. The Next.js backend will generate and verify JWTs for user login, and Angular frontend will store the token and include it in the API request to protect the endpoints. JWT is an industry standard secure token format. It's a self-contained token that includes claims like user info and is signed to ensure authenticity. Finally, we will deploy both apps to Vercel. That is a very popular platform for hosting Next.js and front-end apps, and set up continuous deployment. Vercel will watch our GitHub repository and automatically deploy the latest code when we push changes. We'll also configure the environment variables on Vercel for things like the database connection and JWT secret. So that's the plan. Now let's start building the front end. Our front end is an Angular application which the CLI already generated. Let's open the front-end project in your code editor that we already had opened here. We will create UI components, set up Tailwind CSS for styling, and configure the routing. Tailwind CSS will allow us to style our Angular components rapidly with utility classes like p-4 for padding or text-center to center the text, instead of writing custom CSS for everything. So let's integrate into our Angular project. So this is how I would recommend to install Tailwind CSS. Open the browser and here search for the Tailwind CSS in the Google. It will show you the official website. Open it and click on the docs, and here under the installation click on the framework guides, and here find the Angular documentation. So here is the Angular documentation. Click on that. So this will guide you how to install it with Angular. So first of all, you need to create a project that is already created. So that's fine. Next, we need to install the Tailwind CSS post CSS and its peer dependencies via npm. So this is the code. Just select all and go back to the project. Open the terminal in the root directory of your frontend project, and here paste the command that you just copied from the documentation. And after that, it will configure the post CSS plugin. So you need to create a post CSS rc.json file in the root of your project and add the Tailwind CSS post CSS plugin to your post CSS configuration. So let's quickly do that. Copy the name of the file in the root directory in your editor. Right click, click on the new file and paste the name for that file. And in that file, copy the code and paste it like this. Okay. After that, we need to import the CSS. So add an import to styles.scss that imports the Tailwind CSS. So select all that, go to the styles.css and here just paste it. Now we need to run the application. So run the command ng space serve and wait. Here you can select yes or no depending on your preference. Okay, the app is running on port 4200. So just click on that and it will load your Angular application in the browser that you can see. Okay. Now go back to the documentation, and we need to start using Tailwind in our project. To test it, we will just copy this code. It has the Tailwind CSS classes. So just copy it and go to the app.component.html, remove everything and paste this text. Now you can see that Tailwind CSS classes are working perfectly fine. To make it more prominent, I will add some color like text, orange, 800, save it. And you can see it is working perfectly fine. Now we have Tailwind set up, so we can rapidly build our modern UI. Next, we will create the components for our app's interface. So our app will have a few basic screens, a registration page, a login page, and a dashboard page where a logged in user can view and manage posts. We'll also create some reusable components like a navigation bar. Angular CLI can generate components for us. We can use the standalone flag for standalone components, but at the moment, the standalone components are the default behavior. So whenever you generate new components, they will automatically generate the standalone components for you. You can disable that behavior if you want to while running the command. So let's generate the components. Stop this by pressing Ctrl C or Command C, or you can open a new terminal if you don't want to stop it. Now let's create all of our required components. First, we need to create the Navbar. So run the command ng generate. G is the short command, a short version of the generate command. So you just use G, and C for component, and the folder components slash Navbar is the name of the component that we want to generate. And we want inline template and we want inline style. Okay. So this would just generate a single file. You can feel free to create a full component that will have 3 or 4 files with CSS and with separate individual CSS and TypeScript files. It's totally up to you. Okay, in the components we have the navbar.component.ts with everything inline. Okay, after that let's create our next file, a next component ng generate c pages slash register, press enter. Next we need to create, if I show you, this is the pages folder that was created with the register folder, and this time it has created 4 files, one for TypeScript code, the class file, second one is the HTML, third one is CSS, and fourth one is for testing. Now we will need to generate the login page. It would be in the same location in the pages folder, press enter. Okay, in the pages now we have 2 folders, login and register. Now we need to create another component for dashboard, press enter. All right, we have 3 folders for every page. So if we open any one of these components, so every generated component will have a structure like this with a selector, imports array, template URL and style URL. Now let's add some basic template content to these pages. First of all, open the Navbar component and let's add some code here. I will add the nav tag that will have span. Within nav we will have another sibling element div. Within div we will have a tag, and we need 3 a tag. I guess this syntax should work. A tag, we don't need the href, you can just remove that. And let's add some Tailwind CSS classes. First class would be bg gray dash 800. Then we need text white, then padding 4 on all 4 sides, then flex, then justify between. So this is for the flex. If you're using flex, then you can bring elements vertically or horizontally in the middle, and items center. Now in the span I will add the text for my logo, my app, and in the span I will add some classes. First class would be text XL, then font semi bold. By the way, I'm getting these suggestions of the classes. The reason why I'm getting these suggestions, because I have installed an extension for Tailwind CSS. So if you are using VS Code, click on the extensions and search for Tailwind, and you will notice that Tailwind CSS IntelliSense is installed already in my editor. That's why it is giving me these suggestions. That makes life easier. After that, let's add some classes to a tag mr-4, and here I will add the if condition ng if not authenticated, then show this link. If user is already authenticated, then we don't need to show the login button. So the link text would be login, and the router link would be /login. Okay. So now there are a few things that we need to do. Is that you will see that we are getting this warning because ng if not available at the moment. If you want to make it available, you have to import a module, that is common module, that will make the ng if available. At the moment, authenticated property is not defined. So for now, I will just hard code it here. Authenticated is equal to false. Okay. And after that, I need a few more links. This is for the register, and the route would be register for this. And then we need a link for the dashboard, and it should be visible only if user is authenticated, otherwise no. Third one is basically a button, not the anchor tag. So let's delete it and add button. And in that button, we will have a text. The text would be logout. Okay. And here I will add some classes like bg-red-500, px-3, py-1 rounded. And here I will add the click event that would call a function logout. We will define it shortly, but for now I will create a placeholder for it so that we could get rid of the error. Okay. And here I will add a condition that it should be visible only if user is authenticated, otherwise don't show the logout button. So this navigation bar shows the app name, some links. We use Tailwind classes for styling, gray background, white text, flexbox layout. The ngIf directives show or hide the links based on an authenticated flag. We'll manage that in code via an authentication service. The logout button triggers a logout method that still is needed to be implemented to log the user out. Now let's quickly implement the registration page. So go to the register.component.html, and here I will add a div with classes max-w-sm. So that's mean the width would never go beyond that specific width. And then we need max auto. Max auto means horizontal margin would be auto, and empty dash, let me add the dot, empty dash 10 means margin top 10, and then p-6 means we need padding of 6 on all 4 sides. Then we need border gray 300. Then we need rounded class on it. Press enter. Our div is created with all of those classes. Now add h2 component with the classes text-2xl to control the size, to increase the size of the text. Then we need the class to make the font bold. Then we need the class for margin bottom by using mb-4, and the text would be register. Okay. And after that we need a form tag, and here I would add the ng submit or submit, and we will call a function on submit. We will define this function shortly. Let me quickly add a placeholder for ng submit on submit. On submit, let me correct it. Okay, now I would also add the template reference variable reg form. You can name it anything else if you want to, is equal to ng form. Okay, so now I will add some content of this form. First we will need the input of name, username, and type text, and placeholder would be username, and it is going to be required. And here we added ng form. It is showing error because we still need to import the forms module in our register component.ts. We will do that shortly. And after required, we need some classes. Block dash w dash full, that means we need 100% width. Then mb3 means margin bottom of 3. p-2 means padding of 2 on all 4 sides. Then we need the border. Okay, so this would add border with default values on this input. And now I will copy paste this input 2 times, and second time the type would be password, and the name would also be password. Placeholder would be password, and after that we need a button with the text register or sign up. Okay, and in this button I will add type submit, and it should be disabled if ng form dot invalid is true. Okay, and then we need to add class bg dash value dash 600, and then text dash white for white text, and px2 for horizontal padding, then rounded to add some default radius, then width of 100% by using w dash full. Okay, now we need to complete its class code, so let's quickly do that. Actually we need to add the ng model as well here, and give it the username that we will define shortly. And also we need to copy paste here in the second input as well with the property name password in it. Save it, and in this on submit function we need to pass the template reference variable that we defined here. Copy the name of that and pass it here. Save it. Now go back to the register.component.ts, and let's define on the top 2 properties: username with empty string, password with empty string, and then create a constructor. Within that constructor we will inject few services. Private auth service, we will define this service as well. Quickly let me just name it auth service, and private router, inject the router service. Okay, make sure to add the import statement for the router. And on submit we will be expecting a parameter form ng form. We need to import the ng form from angular/forms, so let's add that statement angular/forms, and here we need to import forms module, and we need to import the ng form. Okay, now we need to add the forms module class in the imports array like this. Because of that all of the errors are gone now from the HTML. Okay, now we need also to generate the auth service class. So for that, open the terminal in the root directory and run the command ng generate s, and name of the folder services / and the service name would be auth. Press enter. That would generate the auth service in the services folder for us. This is the auth service. We'll add implementation later, but for now I may add quickly the placeholders in it. So for example, right now we need a register function here, so I will create a placeholder register, and that would be getting the username and password as parameter. Okay, we will implement it later. Now come back to the register.component.ts, and let's import the auth service that we just generated. Okay, all right, now on submit we will check if form.valid. If form.valid is true, then we will use this .auth service .register and call that function and pass it this .username value and this .password value, and we will subscribe to it like this. It is not returning anything, so because we did not implement anything yet. So for now I will inject the HTTP service, HTTP client like this, and I will just put a simple HTTP post and pass it just dummy text. For now we will update it with the real text. Okay, we need to pass a second argument as well like this. Okay, I will fix it shortly. So now I will add the subscribe here. I did not return anything from the register, so return the response of the post method like this. Now we are receiving the observable here, so we can subscribe to it. Subscribe, and here I will pass an object that will have two properties, next, and then we will have the error property like this. Okay, in the next callback function, if everything goes well, then we will be in this callback function, and we will just alert simply registration successful and please log in. And after that we will redirect this user by using the router dot navigate and pass it an array, and the first parameter would be the path where we want to redirect the user. We want to redirect user to the login page so that user could log in immediately. In the error callback function, we will be getting some error in this parameter, and then we will console.error to show that error, registration failed, and show the error. Then we will also show the alert, registration failed, concatenate it with this string error question mark dot message. If message property available in that error, then return that to concatenate, otherwise return this simple text unknown error. Okay, great. So with that, our register.component is almost completed, but here this is incorrect. Instead of using ng form, we should use target the reg form template reference variable. Now it is perfectly fine. Now let's quickly complete the TypeScript file for the Navbar as well. So go to the navbar.component.ts, and here I will define a constructor, and within that constructor I will add public auth service, inject the auth service like we did before, and then inject the router and save it in the private property router. Add the import statement for both auth service and the router service. Okay, and after that the spellings are not correct, private, now it's okay. After that I need to create a getter here, get authenticated, and it would return a boolean by using the this dot auth service dot is authenticated. Okay, so let's quickly define a placeholder function for the is authenticated function in auth service. So I will just place the function with the empty body. We will add it later, or we will complete it later. Now go back to the navbar.component.ts, and in the logout we will simply call this .auth service .logout. Again, logout is not defined yet, so we will copy the name, go to the auth service and paste the logout. We will complete it as well shortly. And after that we need this router.navigate and pass the path of the route login. So as soon as user logs out, we should redirect user immediately back to the login page. Okay, and authenticated. We are getting this error because we are not returning anything from is authenticated, so we will return true. I'm just returning the hard-coded value for now, but later on we will fix it. But for now these errors are gone. Now it's time to work on the login component.ts. so go back to the login component. We did not add anything in the HTML yet, but let's complete the TS file first. Here again we need the username with empty string, password with empty string, then we need a constructor, and in that constructor we need to inject the auth service by using private auth service, and here we need to inject the router by using private router and router. Make sure to add both of these import statements. After our required services are available, define the function on submit, and we will be getting the form, ng form. Make sure to import the ng form like we did earlier from the forms, and here we need to import another module, that is forms module, and import the forms module here, and also import the common module because we are going to need it. Now let's complete the on submit function. Here we will check if form is valid, then we will call the auth service.login function. Login function is not defined yet, so let's quickly define a placeholder for that login like we did for the registration. So we will need the same parameters, just the name would be login. Okay, and after that we will return the fake response. We will implement this later, then we will be returning the real response, but for now, because we want to have the observable in the response, so that's why I'm returning this, so that we could add subscribe here. But before that, let's pass the this.username here and this.password here, and then we should call the .subscribe, and then we will pass an object. First property would be next for the success, and this is a short form to add the first property function. Here I will add res as the parameter name response, and second callback would be error like this. In the first callbacks, we will use this .auth service.save token and pass the response .token. It should be auth service, sorry, like this. Okay, this .auth service. Currently we did not define any type here, that's why we are getting error. So here I will add any for now, that the response has any type. So I'm getting this error. Maybe I need to add this like this. Similarly here I will add the arrow callback function. Now this error is gone. Now we need to define the placeholder function for the save token. Here let's add the save token, and we need to expect a token from the parameter. So let's add that token of type string. So once that is done, we will redirect user back to the dashboard. This router.navigate by URL or navigate, pass it an empty array slash, and in that array there would be only one parameter slash dashboard like this. Okay, and in the error we will add console.error login failed, and we will show the error in this way as a second parameter error. And next we will alert the message login failed and concatenate it with another text by using this condition. If error.message is there, then return it to concatenate, otherwise return check credentials. Okay, awesome. So now let's complete the login.component.html as our TypeScript is completed. Okay, I will quickly add this HTML. Okay, so this is almost same. I will go through it really quick. So I will also share the code with you in the form of GitHub repository. So I will share that link in the description below. So let's see what's wrong with the on submit. So here actually we need to pass the login form in this way. Okay, so now everything is still same almost same Tailwind CSS classes, the login heading, and then the form. Then we are registering the submit event. You can use ng submit or just submit like we did earlier. And then we have the login form as a template reference variable, and then we have the input with ng model, and name is username. Here I would like to stay consistent. Earlier we actually add this two-way template, two-way binding model, ng model like this, and pass it the name of the property that we defined in the component class. Same thing here, add password. Okay, excellent. Now we have the submit button with the disabled property based on the invalid property of login form, and we have the type submit. As soon as user hits this button, this on submit function would be executed. Now let's quickly complete the register component, dashboard component in the HTML. First, I will add a div with some classes max-w-2xl, then mx-auto-space, and actually not space, dot mx-auto, then we need a class empty-6, press enter. Now we need h2 for heading with the class text-2xl, then font bold, then we need mb-4, enter, then content would be my posts for this heading, and then we need a div with class p-4 mb-3, and then we need border, then rounded class. Okay, and this is going to be repeated because this will display the posts, so add the ng for and let post of posts, and here pass the h3 tag, and in every iteration we will show the title as the heading in the h3 tag, and the classes would be text-xl font semi bold, and then we will add the post.title. Okay, then we need the p tag with the post.content, and after the p tag we need the button tag with the text edit, and then we need a class text-blue-600 mr-2, and we need the click event on it. If user clicks on edit, then we will call a function edit post, and we will pass it the post, and also we need another button with the text delete, but this time the text color would be red and there should not be any margin, and here this is wrong, that should be mr-2, and this time the function that we will be calling is delete post, and we need to pass the post.id. Okay, after that we can create another div that would be new post form div.mt-8p-4, then border, then rounded, press enter. Okay, now we need h3 tag with classes text-lg font-bold mb-2, and the text would be add new post. Okay, after that we need a form tag, and again we will add template reference variable post form is equal to ng form. Okay, and we will register an event submit and call a function add post, and after that within that form we will add the h3 tag that will have the classes text-lg font-bold and mb-2, and the text would be add new post. Okay, after that, actually we already have added that h3. We need to add the input of type text, and the classes would be block w-full mb-2 for margin bottom p-2, and then border, and on the beginning I will add some things like two-way binding ng model that will use the new post.title. We will define these missing things shortly, and then we need the name title, and then we need the placeholder with the text title, and then we need the required attribute. After that we need a text area for the content of the article or post. Okay, in that text area the name would be content, and let's add the ng model in the same way like we added earlier, and this time it would be new post dot content, and we don't need the id, I guess we can remove it, but we need placeholder, and the placeholder would be content, and we need rows of 3. We need the required attribute, and then we need some classes. The classes would be block w-full mb-2 p-2 border. Okay, save it. After that we need a submit button, so let's do that. Button type submit, and the text would be create post, and let's add a disabled directive. Disabled is equal to post form dot invalid. If it is invalid, then disable it, otherwise don't disable it. Then add few classes to style it. First bg-blue-500, then we need text-white, then we need px-4, then we need py-2, then we need rounded. Save it. All right. Now let's complete our dashboard.component.ts. So here we need to import the common module and the forms module. Make sure to add the relevant import statements, and from the forms we need to import another thing, that is ng form. Okay, after that we need to create a property posts of type post with the empty array. Okay, so after that we need a new post is equal to partial post is equal to title and content. Okay, so we now need to inject a service through the constructor, and the service would be post service. So we need to define this service or generate this service now. So for that, run the command ng generate s for service. The name would be services/post. Okay, so that would immediately generate the service in the services folder. And let's go to the service post.service and define this interface post and add title of type string and content of type string. Okay, now let's go back to the dashboard.component, and we are going to import this interface. Actually, we did not export that interface yet, so let's export it first so that we could use it outside of this service. Add the export, and here now you can import it quickly here like this, and make sure to import this service as well with this import statement. Now all of the errors are gone here. After that, I need the onInit implementation. OnInit, make sure to import onInit from Angular/core, and we need to implement this function here, ng onInit, and within that we will call a function this.load posts. Now we need to define this function load posts that would load all of the posts by getting from the backend to display. So this.post service .get posts. We need to define this function in the post service. For now, I will add the placeholder here, so we'll complete it later. Return the response of this.http.get. I will add something empty here, and we need to inject the HTTP client here. Private HTTP client. Make sure to add the import statement for the HTTP client service. Okay, and now I will continue here. So after getting the post, we need to subscribe to it like we did earlier, and we need to pass an object with next callback function and error callback function. Okay, in the next we will set this.post is equal to data that we will be getting from the backend, and it is showing me this error because we did not define the type in the get post. So here you can pass the generic type like this post. The type return type from this endpoint would be of type post array like this. Now you would notice that error is gone here, and in the error section we will simply console the error by using this text error loading posts and show the error as it is. Okay, then we will define another function here, add post, and it will be getting the form ng form. Make sure to import the ng form from the Angular/form like this. We also need the edit post, and it would be getting the post of type post, and then we need to implement the delete post function, and it would be getting the post id of type number. Okay, and now here we will using if condition if form dot valid, then this dot post service dot add post. Again this function is missing, so let's go back to the post service and add our placeholder for that function. We will implement it later, and this would return the response of this .http dot post with something with 2 parameters, and after that in the response we will subscribe to the returned observable like we did earlier and pass an object, and next we'll get post in callback function, and in error callback function we will be getting the error like before, and console dot error would display that error adding post and show that error as the second parameter of this function. And in the next callback function we will use this dot post dot push and we will push the newly created post into our post array that we already have here, but we are getting this error because of the type error. In the add post, we did not specify that what kind of response we will be getting. We will be getting the post that would be created. Okay, so now the error is gone because it is now matching with the type we have defined here in the posts array. After that is done, we will reset our form. So here I will use form dot we need to actually I was here. So after that I need to use form dot reset like this. This would reset the form, and then in the edit post we will define a constant updated content is equal to prompt. And so as I'm trying to keep it as much simple as possible, so that's why I'm just using the browser's default UI behavior that would show you a prompt dialog where you would be able to insert some text, so that we don't have to design anything by ourselves to save our time, because this tutorial has gone already very long and it is still going to be very long, so we should save our time as much as possible. So here I will add added content, and after that I will post.content. Okay, so if user clicks on the edit button, it will show a prompt with the title edit content, and the content it will show the current content in the editor in the text area in that prompt. And once user submit that, the updated content would be saved in this variable. And then I will check if updated content is not equal to null, then we have to call a backend function from our service. This dot post service dot update post by passing the post.id, and in the second parameter we will pass, by the way, id is not defined on the post interface, so let's add the id property with that would be optional of type string or type any, because it can be number as well. So here second parameter will have only one property, content updated content, like this. Okay, after that we have to define this placeholder function as well, like we did earlier. By the way, earlier we did not pass any data while creating the post, so let's do that. This dot new post, and go to the add post. We need to define the parameter, so that we would be using later. So here we will be expecting title of type string, data of type object with properties title of type string and content of type string. Okay, and now let's define update post with the same kind of data. First we will be getting the id of type any, and then we will be getting an object with the content of type string, data of type object with the property content of type string. Okay, and now let's return this .http.patch, I guess, and here we will pass the path and then the payload, and I guess it should return the data of type post. Okay, now we are getting this error. So as we have defined partial post here, and in the add post we were expecting this, so that's why it is not working for us. So we will use the same type like partial post. Now it would be fixed. Okay, the error is gone. Now in the edit post we are updating. Now we need to subscribe to it like we did before, and we will pass a callback. We will pass an object with next callback function. Updated post would be coming from this. You can just keep it as it is. We don't want to receive anything from the payload, and then we will use post dot content is equal to replace it with the updated content that we got from the prompt. Okay, and after that we will add the error callback function, and then we will console dot log and show the text error uploading post, and pass a second call parameter error that we would be getting from this parameter. Okay, now finally actually here we should have passed the post form like this to get rid of this error. Now we need to implement the delete post function. So here I will show a confirm dialog, to make sure that are you sure you want to delete this post. If so, then we will this dot post service dot delete post, and we will pass the post ID like this. And let's quickly define this missing function in the post service. This again would be just a placeholder. We will complete it later. Add the ID of type any, and here we will return this .http .delete and a path, and I think that's it. Save it. Now here we can subscribe to the observable that we are getting from this function. Pass it then an object with property next with property next callback function. This is wrong. And then we need another callback function error, and here we can display console.error, and we can display error deleting post and pass err as a second parameter. In the next we will update the posts array, this dot posts, by filtering out the deleted post by using this syntax, this dot post dot filter, and p is the post for every iteration, and we will check if p.id is not equal to the post id that we are getting from the parameter that is supposed to be deleted. Here I made a mistake. Instead of post service we should use posts like this. Okay, now it is correct. So our dashboard is also completed. So let me quickly describe what is happening here, what we just achieved. This dashboard displays the current user's post and a form to add a new post. We use ng-for to loop through a posts array, which we will load from the API and display each post with edit or delete options. Below that there is a form bound with ng model to a new post object for creating a new post. With templates in place, we should implement the corresponding component class logic. We will need an auth service and post service to handle API calls and state. We already have created those services, but we added just placeholders for the required functions that we will implement. So let's quickly complete the auth service. So go to the auth service, and I would start by adding the property API URL is equal to http localhost 3000/API. Okay, and add a property token is equal to of type string or of type null. Default value would be null. Okay, now in the constructor we already have injected the HTTP client, but we need to inject the router of with the router service. Make sure to add the import statement for the router like this. All right, after that let's complete the register function. Here now I will use the actual path. So here I will add the backticks and use this dot API URL, and after that pass auth/register. We will shortly implement the Next.js app along with these routes there, and here I will pass username and password. Okay, after that we have the login function. Let's complete that. This is going to be same. I'm going to copy paste it, and instead of register it is going to be login. And after that we need to complete the logout function. In the logout I will use this dot token is equal to null, and then local storage dot remove item JWT, and then we need to remove we need to redirect user back to the login by using this dot router dot navigate and call this function and pass it an array, and then add the path where we want to redirect. We want to redirect on the login path or route. Great. After that we need to implement the save token function. So we are already getting the token from the parameter. We will get it and save it in this dot token, and also this dot save it in the this dot token. And after that we need to update the local storage with that token. Local storage set item JWT and token. Okay, now we need to implement the load token function. So in the load token function, let's define it first, load token, and then create a constant token is equal to local storage dot get item and pass it JWT. We got the token from the local storage. Now we will check if token is truly, then this dot token should take that token to save it in that service, and we should return that retrieved token, this dot token. Okay, after that we need a function is authenticated boolean would be the return type, and we will return this dot load token. So this is the simple check if token exists or not. So we are using these double not operators that would convert it to the boolean that we will be using. Okay, is authenticated function was already declared above, so I will remove it so that we could get rid of that error. So this service provides register and login methods to call the respective API endpoints. We will create those in Next.js soon. On successful login, we will get a JWT token, which we store in the local storage for the persistence. The logout clears the token and navigates to the login. Is authenticated function is a helper to check login status that is used for showing and hiding UI elements and route guarding. Okay, now we need to complete the post service as well. So go to the post service, and in the get posts, I will define a property here. API URL is equal to HTTP localhost with port 3000 on the path /API. Okay, and then you can actually add /posts here, because this is going to be same for all of these endpoints, and here use the backticks, and here I will add this syntax, this .api URL, and after that we will put nothing and do the same, copy this and paste it in both of these functions and also here. Okay, and in the add post we should add, actually we don't need to add anything here as well. For the update post we need to add / here, and then again pass this syntax, and we will be accessing the ID. Now this ID is used, we need to use the data. We can call it post as well, so pass this post like this. Similarly, this is also a post, and you can pass this post as it is. Okay, and in the delete post again we need to add /id in this way. Okay, so it defines the methods to get all posts, post a new post, put or update a post, and delete. Actually here for update you can use the put instead of patch, and we have the delete method that delete a post by ID. These correspond to our backend REST API routes, which we will implement in Next.js. We already have implemented the dashboard.component.ts that on init it loads post from the server. It provides the method to add new post. It calls the API, then update the local list. It edit a post's content, very basic prompt based edit for demonstration, and delete a post on success and removes it from the list. This way the UI stays in sync with server operations. One important thing is to make HTTP requests from Angular. We must import the HTTP client module. Since our app is standalone, we don't have app module to import it. Instead, we add it to the providers when bootstrapping. In the main.ts, actually before that, let me fix something. I saw this error in the login.component.ts that there is no token property here in this response. So the reason is that the response is coming from the login function, and in the login we did not define the generic type here. So here we need to define the type of response, that is auth response, and we need to define this interface here on the top, interface auth response, and in that we will have only one property, token string. Okay, so this is the shape of the response from our login API. Okay, excellent. So now let's go to the main.ts, and here we are passing the app config in the bootstrap application function. That is in the app.config. So open that file, and here we have the providers array, and we have the provide routers. Here we are passing the routes. In that array we need to pass another function. Let me put them in a separate line, and so we already have 2 items in this array. We need to add another item that would be provide HTTP client like this. Okay, and call it. So with that, HTTP client would be available throughout our entire application. We can use it in any service or component. Okay, so Here routes is an array we will define for our Angular router, similar to how we did in the module based apps, but now we use provide router like this. If the CLI did not create app.routes.ts, then you should create it, but for me it is already created, app.routes.ts. Currently it has the empty array. So let's add all of our routes that we are using in our entire application. Add path login, then add component, login component. Similarly, copy paste it multiple times. This time we need it for register, and the component would be register component. Then we need dashboard, and the component should be dashboard component, and it was imported twice. Let me remove the duplicate. And by default, for empty, for the main route, it should show the dashboard component. And here we will add star, and in that case, actually for the empty, we should redirect to the dashboard route like this, dashboard, and it should have path match to full. And here we should, instead of showing the component, we will add redirect to dashboard. So this is actually I guess default fallback. So whenever you pass invalid route, it will automatically redirect you back to this route. So this defines routes for login, register, and dashboard. The empty path redirects to dashboard. You could also make a separate home component if desired. All unknown paths redirects to dashboard for now because of this line, as I explained earlier. We also need to ensure that our app component template has a router dash outlet to display these routed components, and perhaps include the navbar. So let's update the app.component.html. I am going to remove everything from here, add the app-navbar, like this. And after that, here I need a div with class container, and then I need a router outlet like this. Okay. And since the navbar is standalone, we must import it into our app component so that this app-navbar is available. So in the app.component, we should not have the login component here. Okay. And here I should import the, actually already navbar component is available. That's why it is not complaining here. Now the Angular frontend is mostly ready. We have a working UI with forms and a service to talk to backend. However, one critical piece remains: ensuring authenticated API calls include the JWT token. We can handle this by using an HTTP interceptor to automatically add the authorization header to outgoing requests. But before doing that, I really want to test this application to make sure everything is done correctly. So clear everything here and run the command ngserve-o. That would open it in the browser automatically once it is running. Okay, so all right, now our app is visible. We have a dashboard, and we have the login button, we have the register button in the header, and it is also showing the dashboard content. The problem is that we are on the dashboard, but we are not logged in yet. So the reason is that we still need to implement the authentication. We need to implement the interceptor and other things. So we need to implement the guards as well. That will protect us to access this route. Okay, we should be able to access the login. Like this is looking great, and then we should be able to access the register. Great. Oh, for the register, I think we missed the submit button. Let me go back to the register HTML, and button is here. Why it did not visible? Let me see. I just added random text that is visible, but why my button is not visible? BG. Oh, it should be BG blue. Okay, and we should have PX2. Actually, it should be same like we have in the sign in. So let's go to the login, and I would copy all of these classes because that button was ideal for us. So let's replace these with these classes, save it, and now it is looking perfect. Awesome. All right, let's proceed further. Now it's time to implement the auth interceptor. So we have to generate the interceptor. Okay, so I will open a new terminal in the root directory of my frontend project, and here I will run the command nggenerate interceptor in the interceptors folder. Let's see if that works. The name should be actually auth. Okay, wait for it. I hope that it would create it in the correct path. Yes, in the app directory, it created a interceptors folder and then auth.intercept. So we have the function based interceptor. So first of all, we need the auth service here. For that, we can create a constant auth service is equal to inject function and pass it the auth service like this. Okay. And now I will create a constant token is equal to this dot auth dot load. Actually, it is the auth service dot load token. So this would return me a token string. Now I will check if token is found, then perform some logic. Otherwise, just return the request as it is. Don't make any change there. But if we found a token, then create auth request by request.clone and pass it an object, set headers with that would be property, and pass it an object. Here we will add our own headers. Like for now we need only one header authorization, and the value would be bearer is equal space, and then actually we should be using the backticks here. Now bearer, and here I will pass the token that we got from this line. Okay. Now what I would do is that I would simply call the next function like this, return the response of next with the updated auth request. Okay. This is the cloned request that we just cloned. So this interceptor grabs the JWT token if present and clones the HTTP request to include the authorization bearer token. We need to provide this interceptor in our app. So in standalone setup, we would add it to the providers in the main.ts as well. So for that, go back to the main.ts, actually go to the app.config.ts, and there we have the provide HTTP client function. Pass it a response of another function with interceptors. Make sure to import this function from angular/common/http. Pass this function, and within that function call, pass an array, and now pass it the auth interceptor like this. Okay. So this would attach our interceptor automatically. Now every HTTP request HTTP client makes will have the JWT attached after login. This way, our Angular app automatically sends the credential to protected endpoints. That wraps up the Angular frontend development. We have the forms to register and login, a dashboard to display and manage posts, and the logic to communicate with the backend. Next, let's build our Next.js backend to handle these requests. Moving on to the backend, our Next.js project will expose the API endpoints for authentication and for CRUD operations on posts. We will also connect it to PostgreSQL database to store users and posts data. Make sure you have the Next.js dev server running for the backend. For that, navigate to the backend directory and then open in your editor, and in the root directory in the terminal of this project, you have to run the command npm run dev to start this server. This starts the Next.js server on localhost 3000. We will create the API routes under the app folder. Since we initialized this with the app router, we will use the app directory route handlers for a modern approach. So here in the app directory, you can create the API folder and define route handler files route.ts to handle the request. Our Next.js server is running. You can open it in the browser and it would display you the default landing page. We will just remove it. We don't need it because we are using it only for the backend endpoints. Inside the backend project, install the dependencies we will need for our server. So let's open our new terminal in the root directory of our backend project and run the command npm install pg json web token and bcrypt. Okay, so pg is the Node.js Postgres client to connect and query our PostgreSQL database. JSON web token will be used to sign and verify JWT tokens for auth. Bcrypt will be used to hash user passwords before storing them. Never store raw passwords. Next, set up a connection to PostgreSQL. For development, you might use a local Postgre instance or cloud database. Ultimately, we plan to use PostgreSQL on Vercel, which means when deploying, we'll configure a database. Vercel can integrate with Postgres providers and get a connection string in an environment variable. For now, create a .env file in the backend directory. for local development. So I just created the .env file. Here we need to add the database URL and the JWT secret. Here we need to replace the user, password, host and port DB name with your database credentials. If you don't have a PostgreDB yet, you can use Vercel to create it quickly to get free PostgreSQL database. Then put its connection string here. We also define the JWT token, which is a random secret key for signing JWT. Keep this secret safe. Vercel will also allow us to set this securely in the production. I will quickly go to the Vercel and create my database so that I could use in this project. So you can also follow along once you have account on Vercel. There you have to go to the storage and you have to create a database, and here we need Postgres. They have other options as well like Redis, Supabase and others, but we need this Neon that would support the serverless Postgres. Continue, and here you need to select the region and then you have to select the plans. We just need the free plan for this purpose, and just click on the continue, and you can name your database. I can name it full stack, and on free they have specified the details that what you will get in free. No credit card required. Maximum projects allowed would be 10 that will be able to use this database. Maximum branches 10, and maximum time on non-primary branch 5 hours. Just hit the create button. Okay, the database has been created successfully. Click on the done, and here on the PSQL, if you click on this, it will give you the URL that you need to copy, or you can get it from the .env.local as well. So from here you can just select all of this, copy that and replace this with that URL, and this is your secret key. You can generate a proper secret key. For now I will keep it as it is for the simplicity. Now let's create the database tables if you have access to the DB. As we just created the database, we just need to use a client that will be using this URL to authenticate and access to that remote PostgreSQL database. So copy this, and I am using the Table Plus. So you can also use the same, or you can use any other database client. So here in Table Plus, click on the plus icon to add a new connection and click on the PostgreSQL, or there is another button, import from URL. I think this would be the best, so click on that. We already have the URL, you can just paste it there. Click on the import and it will fill all of the fields for you automatically. Here you will name it IRStack full stack tutorial. You can name it anything else. Just hit the test button to test that credentials are working. If you see this green highlight color, then that's mean credentials are correct and ready to be used. Just hit the save and double click on the connection and it will open the connection in your client. Now we need to create some tables. So in your client, open the SQL editor and paste this code or type this code. So you need to create a users table and posts table. In users table, we will have ID, username and password hash. Then in posts table, we will have ID, title, content and the user ID that will have foreign key with the users table. Okay, now hit the select all and hit run current, and that would immediately create two tables with this success message. Now if you hit the reload button on the left sidebar, you would notice these two tables are created. So this defines a simple schema. Each user has a unique username and a hashed password, and each post has a title, content and references to user who created it. So in the Next.js Backend project, you need to create this folder structure under the app if not already present. So in the app directory, we will have API folder. In the API, we will have two further folders, auth and posts. In the auth, we will have the login folder and register folder, and in the posts folder, we will have only one folder, ID. And so we have this specific kind of folder that would allow us to receive the parameters from the URL. So you may call it dynamic parameters, and also we have the main route for the posts. Okay, so this structure will give us the URL endpoints. So first endpoint would be /API/auth/register. That would be for user registration. Then we will have the /API/auth /login for user login. Then we will have the /API post to get all posts. Then this one would be for creating a new post. Then we will have a put endpoint that would be for updating post by ID. Then we will have an endpoint to delete the post by ID. Optionally, we can also implement another endpoint with /API/posts/ID to fetch a single post, but our frontend doesn't specifically need a single post fetch in this simple setup, since it either fetches all or uses local state for newly added. We will focus on the main ones. Now let's fill in each route file. We will create them one by one and fill them one by one. So in the API, let me create auth/login. Then we need another folder, register. Then in the login we need route.ts. Then in the register we will need again route.ts. Then we need another file in the posts folder /id for dynamic parameters. Then route.ts. Okay, and after that we need a file route.ts in the posts folder. First, let's create a database client that we can import in our route for making queries. We can make a simple module utils/db.test. So for that, let's in the app folder, let's create a folder utils, and within that I will create a file db.ts, and then we will have this code in it, pool from pg, and then we will create a pool by using the environment variable that we created in .env file, and we are now exporting it as default. We are getting this error in TypeScript that is saying try install the types of pg, so that's why it is complaining. You just have to install this development dependency. So copy that code, npm install --save-dev at types/pg. So it would install the required types for the Postgres plugin. After it is installed, you would notice that error is gone. So this uses the PG libraries connection pool to manage connections to Postgres database. We use the database URL from the environment. Next.js automatically loads the variable from the .env into process.env in Node. By using a pool, we help reuse connections between function calls. You have to note that in a serverless environment, connections might not persist between cold starts, but pooling can still help limit new connections per function instance. Next, the register API. So go to the API auth register route.ts. Let's complete that. First, we need to import the next request and response from next/server, and here we will need to import next request and next server, next actually response, and after that we need to import pool from the db utils that we created earlier, and after that we need to import bcrypt from bcrypt. Okay, after that we need to export a function, export async function post. Okay, make sure this stays exactly as it is to consider it as the post method, and it would expect a parameter request and of type next request, and then we will have try catch like this. In the catch, I will just set type any for this error, and here I would console.error and pass the error message registration error and pass the error as a second argument. Make sure the variable is correct. Okay, now return the next response.json, and error should be internal server error, and send additional data status of 500. Okay, I removed type any from here because it was complaining. Now in the try, I added constant username and password from the request.json. So from the request body you can get the data by using request.json. That would return you a promise, and you have to await, and you have to put async to use await here, and you got the username password from the request body. Once you have that, you will check if username is not found or password is not found, then we will return an error next response.json with the object with property username and password are required. Okay, and after that we will then create a constant check user is equal to await pool dot query, and here we will write our SQL query. Select. In a real world big project, you may want to use some kind of ORM to have better control and to have more productivity, but for now we will be using just plain SQL queries. So select ID from users where username is equal to $1. Okay, and after that we will pass our parameter username, so it would pass this username into this. And the reason we are doing in this way is that it would help us to avoid us from SQL injection hack. And once it is done, we will check if check user dot row count is greater than 0, then return next response with JSON with an object with error property that would say username already taken. Okay, and we will send a status of 409. Okay, so we are getting this TypeScript error that check user dot row count is possibly null. So we can add question mark here, or we should add this condition if check user is true and then check the row count. I would add exclamatory sign here or not operator. That would tell TypeScript that we will definitely get this property, so don't complain about that. And after that, if user was not found against that username, then we are ready to use this username to create a new user. So first of all, we will hash the password by creating a constant password hash is equal to await bcrypt dot hash. Okay, and we will pass it the password. Okay, now we will insert this new user in the database. For that, use await pool dot query, insert into users username password hash values 1 and $2, and then in the second argument we will pass these two parameters for username and password. Okay, actually we should use the password hash here instead of direct password. Okay, finally, if everything goes well, then at the end we need to return the next response dot JSON with an object with message saying user registered successfully, and in the second argument I will pass a status here like this, and that would be 201. Okay, that implies that resource is successfully created. So this endpoint reads username and password from the request body. It checks if username is already in use, then hashes the password with bcrypt, and we are using the, actually I forgot to add the 10, so that's mean we are using the salt rounds that equals to 10 and inserts the new user into database. On success, it returns a 201 status with the success message. We don't return a token here. The user will log in next to get one. Now go to the login route, but before that I am getting this error. It is again same kind of error. We need the types for the bcrypt, so copy this command and paste it here. npm install --save -dev at types /bcrypt. So that would install the types and we will get rid of this type error. Okay, the error is gone. Now go to the login folder, open the route.ts, and here we need to add some same imports that we added in the register route. So copy them and paste them here. We need an additional import statement for importing the JWT from JSON web token. Okay, and again we are getting same TypeScript error. We have to install the types for the JSON web token as well. Copy it and paste it here, and once it is installed, then this specific error would be gone. After that, we will add a function export async function post with request of type next request, and then we will add try catch like we added earlier. And let me copy paste the code for the catch block to save my time. Okay, now in the try block I will create a constant. Actually, let's copy the same piece of code from the register. This one is same, so this part would stay same, so copy that and paste here. Okay, so we are getting the username password from the request body, and we are checking if they are not provided, then we will return with an error that it is compulsory. And also we need to pass a status as the second argument, that would be 400. Similarly, go to the register, add that missing status here, status 400. Okay, now if username password was provided, then we will find that user in the database. For that, create a constant result is equal to await pool.query and select id password hash from users, where username is equal to $1 and pass the username as the second argument inside that array. Okay, now we will check if a result dot row count is equal to 0, then we will return an error, return next response dot json and pass it an object, error invalid credentials. Okay, and as the second argument we will pass an object with status of 401, that implies unauthenticated. Okay, after that, if user count was greater than 0, then that's mean we have the user that we can store in user constant from result.rows from 0 index. Now we will check the password if that is correct or not. So we will check, create a constant match and await bcrypt dot compare password and user dot password hash. Okay, so match would have true or false, so we will check. If match is true, then that's mean password was correct. But if that is not true, we will add the not operator here. Then we will return next response dot json with error object. Error property would be invalid credentials, and in the second argument the status would be 401. Okay, but if match was true, then that's mean password is correct. So we need to generate the JWT token. So create a constant token is equal to JWT dot sign, and within that sign function we will pass an object that is basically the payload of that JWT. User ID should be user.id, and second argument, second property would be username, and second argument would be the JWT secret. So get it from process.env.jwt underscore secret as string. Okay, and make sure that this is exactly same as you defined in the .env file. So copy this name from here just to avoid any mistake and paste it here. Great. Now we need to pass a third argument in this function, that would be an object, and in that object we will specify the property expires in, and we will set the time that it should be expired after 1 hour. Okay, and finally at the end we will return the next response.json with the token that we just generated. Okay, perfect. So here the login endpoint verifies the username exists and password matches the stored hash. If okay, then it creates a JWT token containing user's ID and username signed with our JWT secret. We set it to expire in 1 hour, so tokens are not valid indefinitely. You can adjust it as needed. The response sends the token to the client. Our Angular app will receive this and store it for authentication for future requests. Now the posts API. We have two files, one for the operations on the collections, and we would be using the route.ts from the main folder, and one for the operations on a specific ID that we will be getting from the route parameter. So first let's implement the post collection API endpoint. So open this route.ts, and we have to import almost same import statement. So copy them from here and paste it here. And we have next request response. So we have imported the pool, and then we need to import the JWT from JSON web token. Okay, that's it. After that, we need to create a helper function, async function verify user. It will be getting the request of type next request, and we will create a constant with auth header is equal to request dot headers dot get with the name authorization, and then we'll check if authorization or auth header is not found, or if auth header dot starts with bearer. So here we are saying if it doesn't start with the bearer, then it is invalid, and if so, we'll just return the null. Okay, and if everything is correct, then go to the next line, create a constant token is equal to get the token from auth header dot slice 7. So that's mean it would so these are 7 characters basically, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. So after 7 characters it will get the remaining part, that would be the actual token. You can also use a split function by splitting from the bearer, it's up to you. So then we will have the try catch block, try catch in this way. In the catch I would just return the null, and we are getting this that it is defined but never used, so we have to use it. So I will just add console.log error in this way. And now in the token and the try, we will create a constant payload is equal to jwt.verify token process.env.jwt secret as a string. Okay, and we will return this payload. All right, now we have to use this function. So by the way, this payload contains the object with the user ID and username that we created earlier when you were signing in. Now export a sync function with get method. The name of function should be get as it is, and request should be of type next request. Okay, and then we will add try catch block. In the catch we will simply use the console.error and pass it error fetching posts and pass the error as the second argument, and after that I will return the next response.json with the error property with value failed to fetch post. So this error would be sent to the front end, and Angular will be able to consume it and show it to user properly. And in the second argument I will pass the status of 500. Okay, then we will create a constant result await. So we will not verify the user for getting the data, because at this stage we don't need any token. Anybody can access all of the posts, but when we will be making any request, then we have to verify the user. Otherwise we don't allow any random person to create or update data in our database. So await actually result should be equal to await pool.query and select ID, title, content, user ID from posts. Okay, and then we will return the next response dot JSON with result dot rows. Okay, by the way, this request is not being used anywhere. Okay, so I guess we can just remove it. Yes, that's fine. Next we need to define the post endpoint handler. For that, create a sync, export a sync function post and try catch. And in the catch we will copy paste some code from here. Okay, so here you can say error creating post, and in the response you can say fail to create post, save it. Now on the top in the try, actually before the try, I would add constant user is equal to await verify user. So now we are using that function that we created above, verify user. We have to pass it the request, next request. So pass it as it is. Okay, once it is verified, if everything is correct, then we will get the user. And here we can check if user is null or falsy, then we will return error by using return next response.json with the property error, and also status should be 401, and the error property should say unauthorized. Okay, and now in the try block I will create a constant title content, and we are getting these properties from the request body by using await request.json, and we will check if title or content are not provided, then we will throw an error, return an error, return next response.json error. This title and content are required, and second argument will have the status of 400. Okay, and after that, if everything is correct, then we will go ahead and create that post. Okay, so constant result is equal to await and pool dot query and insert into posts title, content, and user ID, and values would be $1, $2, and $3, and send a second argument with an array to pass all of the respective values, title, content, user ID. Okay, and also after this I want to return returning, you can add returning ID, title, content, and user ID. So we are instructing it that after creating, return these items to us back. Okay, and here we're getting that user ID does not exist on type string JWT payload property. User ID doesn't exist on this. Okay, actually, as we are not a return, we did not define any type here, so that's why we are getting this error. But we know that when we verify the payload, this payload would always have of this type, that will have user ID of type string and username of type string. And by the way, as we have added the async here, that's mean we are returning a promise. So just cut it and use promise here with the generic type this object, and we will allow to return null as well by adding our null in this way. Okay, and we can copy this type and put it here as well like this. Instead of that, you can just add as this type. Okay, now everything is correct. Now here we need to use this result. After this, we will create a constant, a new post. So we will be getting the new post from result.rows from 0 index, and we will just return it as it is. Return next response.json new post, and second parameter would have an object with status of 201. Okay, save it. I think that's it. So we wrote a helper verify user that checks the authorization header for bearer token and verifies it. If valid, it returns the token payload, which includes user ID and username, since we encoded those in JWT. If invalid or missing, it returns null. We will use this to protect endpoints. The get handler fetches all posts from DB and returns them as the JSON. In the real app, you might restrict this to logged in users or not, depending on the use case. Here we will allow anyone to fetch post, but you can easily require auth by using the verify user in your get as well. The post handler uses verify user to ensure the request has a valid JWT, otherwise responds the 401 unauthorized. Then it reads the new post data from the request body and inserts a new row in the posts table here associated with the authenticated user.id. It returns the created post including its new ID with the 201 status. Now we need to implement the single post routes. Okay. In the login, I mistakenly added this error import statement that is not needed. Just remove it. Okay. Now open this route.ts in the ID folder, and let's add the same import statements that we added here. Okay, and after that we again need the same verify user function, but instead of rewriting here, you may also do this thing. You can export it so that you could reuse it without rewriting the code. You can move it into another helper file as well, a separate file, but for now I will just keep it here, but you just put export here. Now you will be able to utilize it here in this file as well. So first of all, I need to export a sync function post function, and that would be getting request next response, and actually this should be next request, and then you need a second parameter, and from that parameter we will be getting only params. So I will add the type here, params ID of type string. Okay, so actually this is the put method that I wanted to create. So in this second parameter, I am getting the params, and params will be an object with the ID, and this ID basically would be coming from this route parameter. Okay, so as we have the ID dynamic parameter, so we can now use it here in this function. First of all, we need to get the user, so I will get it from await verify user. You see this suggestion is coming from the route.ts file, so I just imported this reusable function verify user and pass it the request. Okay, and after that I will check if user is not found, then we will simply throw a return an error in the form of next response.json. Error property would be unauthorized, and second argument would be an object with status 401, and if user is valid, then we will create a constant post id to get post id from params.id, and I will add try catch. In the catch, let me copy paste some existing code from here, from the catch block. Okay, because most of the things would stay same. Okay, so here instead of this you can say in catch error updating post and fail to update post. Okay, and in the try block I will extract the title and content from request.json, that is request body, and after that we will update the post. In the real app, verify that the post with post id belongs to the user.user id before updating. So here you can create another query, but for now I will just keep it simple. I will just add await pool.query update posts set title is equal to $1, content is equal to $2, where id is equal to $3. Okay, now you need to pass a second argument with an array that will have title, content and post id. Okay, excellent. After that we will return the next response.json with an object message that would say post updated. Okay, next we need to implement the delete route handler. For that, export async function delete request next request, and again we will be getting params of type an object with property param, and this will have the id in it of type string. Okay, after that we will add our logic. First of all, we will verify the user is equal to await verify user request, and if user is not found, then again handle the error in the same way like we did earlier. If user not found, then return this message. Okay, and then create a constant post id is equal to number params.id, and then try catch, and in the try catch we will use the same kind of error that we used earlier. Copy this code, paste it here, and here you can say error deleting post, fail to delete post. Okay, in the try block I will add await pool.query delete from posts where id is equal to $1 and pass the array with the post id that would be added here by this function. And once done, we will return the next response with JSON with message post deleted, and we don't need JWT here, you can just remove it. Alright, so the put and delete are protected by JWT as well. We again use the verify user. For simplicity, we did not implement logic to ensure one user cannot edit delete another user's post. In a real world scenario, you would check the post's user ID against the user.user ID from token and only allow if they match. If you really want to do that, you can quickly do that as well before updating or deleting. Due to time, we will assume a single user scenario or trust the front end to operate on their own post, but in real world you will be very thoughtful about these things. With these routes handlers in place, our Next.js backend covers registration that inserts the new user, login that returns the JWT, then get posts that returns all post, then create a post that requires auth inserts a new post, then update post that requires auth updates an existing post, then finally delete a post that requires auth and deletes a post. Before moving on, let's test the backend quickly. You can use a tool like Postman or simply Angular app itself. So make sure your Next server is running. We already have ran this server, so it is already running. So let's open Postman and test our application. So here I will put http://localhost 3000/API/auth/register, and this should be using the post method. And if you hit the send button, let's see what happens. It is saying internal server error, and if you go to the register route, we will see that internal server error is sent in the catch block, and in the console you would see the error. It is saying unexpected end of JSON input. Okay, now we need to go to the body, provide a JSON that we are expecting. Select type JSON here and pass an object with username test user. For now I will just hit send button as it is. Now it is saying username and password are required because we did not provide the password. So let's provide it as well. Password should be test pass. Now you should get a 201 response if all is well, or 409 if you run it again because the user exists. So let's give it a try. Hit send button. We got 201 status and user registered successfully. But if you hit the send button again, it will forbid you from doing that because that username is already there and you are getting the 409 error with the error message username already taken. Now let's go back to our table plus our database client and go to the user, and let's see if we have a data. Yes, we have a user entry here with the username and a password hash. Okay, excellent. Now let's test the login method. So I will duplicate it and here I will add login, and in the body for now I will cut it. Let's send it to test the invalid username password. It is saying username or password are required. So if I pass invalid password, then it says invalid credentials. So if you pass it, then it will give you the token. Okay, so that is what we want. So that means everything is correct, and this token has the payload that we would get after decoding it in the server side. But for now, this is just a token that we have to use whenever we send a request to the backend. But if you pass an invalid user, then it will just say invalid credentials. Okay, excellent. So this is also tested. Now let's copy this token and test the post creation. So duplicate this tab, and here instead of auth I will try posts, and in the body I would add an object with properties title would be first post and content would be hello world. And now let's give it a quick try. You will get unauthorized error with 401 unauthorized. The reason is that we did not specify the authorization token. I already have copied that, so for that just go to the headers and here provide the key with the name authorization, and value should be barrier and this token. Send it. This time I got 201 status that post has been created, so everything is working. If you go back to the table plus, go to the post, you would see that our first post has been created by the user ID 1. Now I will duplicate it to get the list of all of the created posts. So for that, go to the get method and hit the send button, and this time you will see an array of all of the post items that are created. If you hit this again submit button, then you will get the second item in the second post, hello world 2. Hit the send button, that is also created. Now hit this get endpoint and you will get 2 items in this array this time. Now let's test the put endpoint and delete with the same token. So I will just duplicate this one. We already have the authorization in it. I will duplicate it, and this time I will use the put method, and in the body by the way, for the put I need to pass an ID route parameter in this way, for example 1. So here first post updated and content we can say hello world updated. Okay, now let's try the send button and wait. Okay, it is saying post updated, and if you hit the get endpoint again, you would notice that our first post has been updated. But if you try to update a post ID that doesn't exist, then you will get an error that would say, oh, it is saying post updated, but it should not do that. Let me see if there is any change in the database table. So no change there yet, but it is saying that it was updated, but that is incorrect. So let's quickly go back to our put endpoint here and see what's going on. So here we got the post ID, but we didn't check if that post ID exists or not. So that's why we did not get any error. We can write a logic to handle that part if you want to. For example, you can just copy the same code here like this and let response is equal to, and here I would say select all from posts where ID is equal to 1, and here I would just pass the post ID, and now I can check if response dot row count less than 1, then that's mean that row doesn't exist. And here you can add the not operator or the symbols to tell compiler or TypeScript that this would be available, so don't complain about that. And now if that's the case, then we will simply return next response.json that would say the message that invalid post ID. Okay, and we can pass a status 401. You can say 401 as well because that post ID doesn't exist. And what else? Now let's try to update invalid ID, and this time you got the 401 invalid. Actually it should be 404, not 401, sorry. So if you hit that again, you would get 404 error and the message would be invalid post ID. Okay, great. So all these work, so congratulations, your backend is functioning. Now let's integrate frontend and backend. Now that both frontend and backend are working in isolation, it's time to connect them and ensure they are working together as a full stack system. So we configured our Angular services, auth service and post service with API URL. For example, let me open that. Here you can see we have the API URL. This means that Angular app will make requests to our local Next.js server during development. We also set up the HTTP interceptor to attach the JWT token. This is the interceptor that attach the JWT token automatically. So let's verify the integration flow. So first we will test the user registration flow. We will open the register page. So go back to the browser, and here we are on the register page already. So here go to the inspect element just to observe things in the network, and here put a password and hit the submit button. So this registration component will call our auth service, which sends the post request to HTTP endpoint auth/register in our backend with the form data. The Next.js backend receives this, creates a user in Postgres and returns a success message. So let's try. Yes, I got an error that is saying registration failed, unknown error. It is saying course error. So this is a cross origin error that we have to fix. We have to change some permissions in the Next.js so that we could get rid of this error. Okay, so we have to whitelist the URL of our frontend. For that, go back to the Next.js app in your editor and open the next.config.ts, and here you have to add this code. Here I have specified /API path, so it will apply these headers to all API routes only. Okay, and here we have added this header, allow control, allow credentials, access control, allow origin. Here we have to specify the correct domain. For now it is HTTP localhost 4200. Okay, and we are allowing all of these methods: get, delete, patch, post, put, and options. And we are adding this allow headers, XCSRF token, request, accept, etc. So I copied pasted here, but this should work. You can also type as it is, or you can copy from the source code that I would provide in the GitHub repo. Okay, Now let's quickly try it once more. I will clear this, hit the sign up. This time I don't see any error and I see a 201 success message that with the success alert message that is saying registration successful, please log in. Okay, so our Angular redirected us to the login page because it was successful. We should see the new user in the database as well. So let me show you. Go to the users and you can see that new username is there. And now it's time to test the user login flow. So here we need to enter the credential. If you submit, the Next.js Backend verifies and returns the token, the object with token, and Angular receives this, saves the token in the local storage and navigates to the dashboard. So let me quickly show you in the application. Here this is token from other session. I will just delete it. Okay, so currently there is nothing in our local storage. It is empty. For your case it would be empty. Okay, now let's go back to the network, hit the login button, and we got login failed undefined and 400 error. Something is wrong here. It is saying that username and password are required, and let me see why I got undefined in the alert. So go back to the front end, go to the login.component, and in this alert I am getting that if there is error, then there was no message property. So I think we should just get it as it is. If there is error, then attach it because that is going to be string, and otherwise. Okay, now let's try it again. Okay, it is saying login failed object. Okay, I guess I need to add dot error in this way. Let's type the password again. Now it is saying login failed, username and password are required. Okay, that's interesting. We already have passed it, but why it is saying that? Go to the network, click on the fetch XHR, and this is a login. Go to the payload and you see that username is not going through. So let's see what's the issue. This is the username, it should be going. Go back to the HTML and let's see what's wrong here. ng model username, placeholder username, and I guess the reason is that it was working for the password because we added the name attribute, but for the username we did not provide the name attribute. So let's do that, username. Now it should work. Okay, great. Now let's quickly test it. Let me add the correct password and hit the login button, and this time it worked. Excellent. And we got the 200 from the login endpoint, but in the posts we got the cross origin error. So I think the reason is that here in network we are sending this authorization header, and but we have whitelisted only these headers. If you add any extra header, then it will fail. So let's add that additional header that we should whitelist, and it should be capital A, I guess. Let me try that, and let's reload it. Okay, now it is working. So this was the reason that we were sending an extra header, but that was not whitelisted. But as now we are logged in, on the top we don't see login or register button. Instead we see the dashboard text with the logout button and our recent posts that were created with edit and delete button, and this is the form to create a new post. And if you go to the inspect element once more, go to the network, if you reload, so this is the request going to the backend that would return you this array with all of these objects. If you have more items in database, it will include them too. And if you go to the headers again, I will show you that this is automatically attaching the authorization token because of the interceptor that we created in our Angular app. Let me quickly fix the spacing of this form. So for that, go to the front end app and go to the post dashboard.html, and this is the form. Here I will add p-4, I guess. Okay, that is perfect. Now first I would test all of these functions buttons. So let me quickly explain. Now on dashboard, Angular's dashboard component calls the post service.getPost. Let me show you. So it calls the get posts, which issues a GET request to the /API/posts endpoint. And thanks to our interceptor, this request includes the authorization bearer token that I have shown you already in the network. The Next.js backend get post doesn't strictly require auth in our code. We allowed public access for fetch, so it would return the list of the posts that I have shown you in the network. If we wanted to require login to view posts, we could enforce it, but either way, the token is sent. The posts appear on the dashboard. When user adds a new post via the form, Angular would call the post service add post. This is the add post function. So let's quickly test it. Go to the inspect element and network, and let's fill this form and see what happens. Third post content, and hit the submit button. We saw this endpoint and we saw the status 201, and it has attached again the authorization token in this way. And if you go to the payload, this is the data we sent to the backend, and backend returned us with this response. Okay, and you may have noticed that it immediately displayed the third post without needing you to reload the page. So that is also nice. So the next post handler verified the token that we sent in the header, ensuring user is logged in. Then insert the post with the associated user ID. It returns the created post here in the preview. Also, to show that updated new post in real time, it pushed that into the posts array. Let me show you here in this line number 39. The UI updates immediately to show the new post. So this demonstrates a full create workflow, front end to back end and back. Edit and delete operations similarly go through. Angular calls the API with token, backend verifies and performs the operation, then Angular updates the UI state accordingly. So let's quickly test them. I would like to delete the second post, so click the delete button. It is now showing you the confirmation. Hit OK, and you would see that there's a request with 200 status, and it has been deleted from the UI. And here it is in response saying that post was deleted, and in the header you see this is the path. We are sending the ID in the URL and the token to verify ourselves. Now let's quickly test the edit function. Click the edit. You would notice that it showed a prompt. Here you can update it, like again updated. Hit OK. You will see another request going to backend, but it was failed. Why was failed? Let's see what is the issue. Issue is that it is just saying failed to update the post. So let's go back to the Next.js app and go to the terminal. Here you would find the reason why it is happening. Here it is saying that route use params.id. Params should be awaited before using its properties. Okay, that's interesting. Go to the route and let's see. Okay, I was looking at this documentation here. In order to use the param, you have to use the await as it is suggesting in the console or terminal. So let's do the same here. Let's wrap it in the parentheses. Here I will add await, and after awaiting we will get the actual params and we will get the ID. Okay, similarly we should do, I don't know why it worked for the delete, I don't understand, but I would like to stay consistent, so I would just copy this and paste it here as well so that we could follow the best practices. Okay, now let's try it once more, reload it and edit it. Here I would say updated once more. Okay, again we got the error. Let's see what's wrong here. So the issue is that we are updating the title, but we are not sending the title. We are just editing the content here. So that was the problem. So in the put, we should not be updating the title. So I will just remove the title from here because we know only content is being updated. So remove the title, and here I would add 1 and ID would be $2 because the positions are changed now. All right, now let's give it another try. So edit that, and this time I would say updated once again. Okay, and this time we got 200 error, 200 status. That's mean it was success, and in the response it returned an object with the message post updated, and you will see that in real time we have displayed the updated content. So edit is also working, delete is working, and create is working. Now it's time to test the logout flow. So let's click on the logout and we are on the login page. So when the user clicks logout in the navbar, we call the auth service.logout. Let me show you that. Open the navbar, go to the front end first, navbar component, and this is the logout. When you hit the logout button, it calls the logout, then it calls the auth service.logout. This clears the token and navigates to the login route. If the user tries to access the dashboard without a token, for example by typing the URL, let me show you dashboard, we should ideally prevent that. We can add an auth guard on Angular routes to protect dashboard. For example, define a simple guard that uses auth service dot is authenticated to allow a redirect. So let's quickly implement that guard. So for that, open the terminal in the root directory, run this command ng generate g for guard. So I put 2g, first g for generate and this for guard, and then name of the guard, it would be auth. Press enter. Now it is asking you for option that which type of guard would you like to create. I guess you can select multiple as well, but we don't want multiple. We only need can activate guard. So select that. It has created the auth guard.ts in the app directory. Let me show you here by collapsing all of these. So auth guard is created here. By default, it is returning true. So first of all, we need to create a constant to have the auth service. Let's inject it. Inject auth service. Now we have the auth service, and let's inject the router service. Inject router service or just router. Make sure to add these two imports, and after that we need to check if auth dot is authenticated, call that function, then return true. But if not, then navigate user to a different route, that would be /login, and then return false here. Okay, so let's give it a quick try. Reload this page. It didn't work. The reason is that we did not use this auth guard yet. Let's apply this guard in our routes. Go to the app.routes in the dashboard. Here add a comma and type can activate and pass it an array, and we have only one guard that we want to use here. Just pass it in this way. Save it. Now you would notice that it immediately redirected you back to the login page if you are not logged in. So always Angular will redirect to login page instead of showing the dashboard. Let me try once more. Type dashboard and it will forbid you from visiting that page until you are logged in. Okay. Now let me quickly show you another thing. Go to the application. Here we don't have any session stored for the token. Just click on the login, and after you are logged in, you would notice that immediately we saw JWT token here. It is saved, and it is happening because of the auth service. I will show you. In the auth service, when you log in, and then we call the save token function, that would take the token and save in the JWT named session or local storage. So this is basically a token, JWT token. Okay. So by the way, although you can easily see the content of this token, but you cannot manipulate it, because this can be manipulated or changed by the server itself. If you make any change in this token and send it back, then server will reject it, because remember we used the JWT secret in .env. We use this secret. So if you manipulate it, you would be doing in different style, and as you did not use the same signature to modify the payload, so it will not accept it. Let me show you JSON JWT. There is a website. Let me show you. So in this website, if you put your token here, you would notice that on the right side it will immediately show you the payload. So this is the payload, user ID, username. So that's why in your payload you should not include any sensitive information, because anybody can see it once they get your token. But don't worry, they will not be able to manipulate it, because our server would never accept it, because we need a secret. Anyway, with JWT authentication, it's crucial to protect the backend routes. It is crucial to protect the backend routes. We did this by checking the token in Next.js route handler, verify user. Let me show you. So here, this is a verify user. We We did this by checking the token in the Next.js route handlers by using verify user. Only request with a valid authorization token header will be allowed to create, edit or delete post. This ensures we cannot simply post or delete by calling API without logging in. The token itself is signed with our secret, so the backend trusts it. We should also consider cross-origin resource sharing that we already have seen and how to manage, because our Angular app is making requests to the Next.js API from a different domain. So in development, if the origins differ, the browser will block the request unless the server permits it. Next.js API routes can be configured to enable CORS that we already did in the next.config here. But we can implement other approaches as well. Next.js API routes can be configured to enable CORS. For example, we can add a middleware or set headers in the response. A simple way, in each response we can include a header as well, but this approach is, I think, better. A global approach, you can also implement a middleware. In production, also serve the Angular app over HTTPS and Next API over HTTPS to ensure tokens are not exposed in plain text. JWT should ideally be sent over secure connections only. Our integration ensures that whenever the user performs an action, the UI reflects it. After adding a post, we immediately appended the returned post to the posts list. After deleting, we filter it out of the list. After editing, we update the content in the list. This optimistic update approach makes the app feel snappy. However, if multiple users were editing concurrently or if more complex data flows existed, we might need to refresh data periodically or use WebSockets for real-time sync. That's beyond our scope here, but it's something to consider for larger apps. I can also record separate videos dedicated to those topics. If you are interested, you can let me know in the comments below. We should also handle the token expiration. We set 1 hour expiration. If the token expires while the user is using the app, the next API calls will return 401 unauthorized. In Angular, we could catch that in the interceptor and redirect to the login and attempt a token refresh if we had refresh tokens. For now, a simple approach is to alert the user and redirect to the login if any 401 occurs from our API. With a working full stack application, the final step is to deploy it so others can use it. We will deploy both frontend and backend on Vercel, set up continuous deployment so that any push to our repository triggers a new deployment. So let's prepare for the deployment. Ensure your code is committed to the Git repository, GitHub or GitLab. You might have 2 separate repos, one for frontend and one for the backend. Vercel can handle either. For simplicity, let's assume we have 2 different repos. In that case, we will create 2 projects on Vercel from the same Vercel from those 2 different repos, each pointing to their relevant repos. Alternatively, natively you can have one single repo and you could merge the Angular build output into the next, but it's easier to treat them separately. First of all, I need to create a 2 GitHub repos. So let's do that. github.com, sign in, and here I will create a new repository, and that repository might be full stack frontend, and you can keep it private because this is going to be your production app, and click on the repository. Okay, the repository has been created. Copy this URL and go to your frontend project, and let's connect this repository with this code. Here I would add git remote add origin and the URL. Clear it, and now I would git add to add all of the files to the staging. And now here I will add a commit message, git commit -m all files. Okay, the code has been committed. Now we have to push it. Git push origin main. Okay, I have pushed my changes to the GitHub. So if you go back, reload this repository, you will notice all of the changes are there. Okay, excellent. Now we will create another repository that would be private, and it is going to be full stack backend. Okay, and let's create this repository and go back to the backend project. Go to the terminal in the root directory, and here copy this URL and git remote add origin and paste the remote origin URL. And now git add to stage all of the files. Now git commit -m files. Okay, git push origin main, press enter, and you would notice that all of the files are uploaded. If you reload, you will notice all of the files are there now. Now let's go to the Vercel, and we are going to create a new project, and we have to import our repository. So first I will import the backend one. Click on import, and also we need to make sure to set the build command should be npm run build. So let's see, actually it already used the preset, so that will take care of that part automatically. You can see that it is going to use these commands by default. If you want to modify them, you can click on this and start modifying it. Otherwise it would be working out of the box. And here are the environment variables. You have to put the environment variables in this section. So you can add it later as well after it is created, but you can add it at this time as well. So let's quickly add these environment variables. Let's see what we need. We need database URL, first environment variable, and let's copy the path of the URL or environment variable. And then we need the JWT secret. Copy this and this. Okay. So after building it, Vercel picks them these variables up, and these would be available in your application. After hitting the deploy button, I got this error that it failed to deploy because of this error that is saying that this route has an invalid put export. The type params id string is not a valid type for function's second argument. So let's fix it. Okay, so to fix that, we have to make some changes in the type. So go to this route, and we need to change these types. Here I should specify this. Let me remove this. I have specified that params is promise with this data in it, and after that also this part could be more simpler. For that I could add constant id is equal to await params. So this is better version, so let's use it here in this way. Okay, and same thing should be happening in the delete method as well. So let's replace it, and let me copy this part and paste it here, and here I would just use the id directly. Okay, now we need to commit again and push it, and this time Vercel would automatically detect this change and would start to deploy it. Let's go to the project. Project was created, but there is no deployment yet. So let's add a commit, fixed issue, and stage it, commit it, and publish. Okay, now go to the deployment. You would notice that it should be started automatically. Let me see, reload it. Maybe it was failed for the first time, that's why it did not trigger automatically. So in the project there was error for the first deployment. No production deployment yet. So here I would click on the create deployment. This would pick the latest commit from the main branch. This is the main branch selected, fixed issue 1 minute ago. So it automatically picked up the latest commit. Click on the create deployment. I'm hoping that next time it would automatically start it. Access to project on Vercel. Deployment request did not have a Git author with access to the project on Vercel. There is some permission issue. I don't know why. Maybe we should re-authenticate user. So go to the setting, go to the Git, and let's disconnect it and connect it again. Click on the GitHub, and let's connect Frontend and back. I have connected the backend, and go back, go to the deployments. Let's try to create it once again. Create deployment. Let me do one thing. Instead of spending more time, I would just delete it and create it once more. So maybe because earlier there was an error in our code, the first deployment should be smooth, and the subsequent deployments would be smoother without any error. So let's delete this project. We need to copy paste it here, enter the project name, and here we need to type this text, delete my project, and hit the delete button. Okay, hit the delete. Make sure there are no spaces when you type it. Okay, it is now deleted. Now let's add a new project once again, and again I will select the Backend, and here go to the environment variable. I will again add my environment variables, copy these, and all of these are automatically added. Hit the deploy button and wait for it. It was failed once again. It is saying that this route does not match the required types of the Next.js route. So it is saying verify user is not a valid route export field. Okay, I know what is the wrong here. So remember, go to the post. We exported this, but in a routes file of Next.js, you can export only the handlers with the proper allowed names, get, post, delete, patch, etc. But you cannot export any random function. So it's better to delete it from here and move it into a utility file. So I created a utility file earlier, maybe this one in DB, but I will create another one. I can say general.ts, okay, and paste this code here. And we need to import the JWT as well. Import JWT from JWT JSON Web Token. Okay, now it is exported from here. So we will get error in multiple places where we are using verify user. So make sure to import them. I have imported the verify user from that util file, save it. Similarly here, remove this, and we need to import it from the correct path now. Okay, so before pushing it online, I would test the build process here to make sure there are no more errors. Npm run build. Meanwhile, again, I'm going to delete the project because I want to start from scratch. So let me delete it from here. So paste it. Similarly, paste it here and delete. Now add a new project, and apparently there are no errors while building, so we can continue and commit it. Fixes, commit it, sync it online. Once we do that, we are ready to import the backend project here. Hopefully this time it would not fail. Go to the environment, go to the .env, copy all of these environment variables, paste them here, and hit the deploy button. Okay, let's wait and see if that fails or not this time. Okay, this time the deployment was successful with the success message. You can go to the dashboard, and this is the URL of your backend app. You can click on that and you will see this landing page. Copy the URL, go to the Postman, and let's replace this with this URL because this is the live URL now. Send the request and we should get the data. This data is now coming from the live server. So the backend is live and working, and it should be the live deployment should be working fine. Let me quickly make another change just to verify that it will automatically detect the change and redeploy or build things. So let's add something here. Maybe I will add testing. I added a comment so that I could commit. Here I will mention testing, commit, sync, and let's see if it detects the change or not. It did not detect any change, so I think there is something wrong. By the way, if you go to the deployment, I'm sure I will get an error because I'm using a different user details or email for the git commit. That's why it is not working, I guess. So for example, if I go to the project, or maybe go to the deployment, and here if you click on the deployment, create deployment, and try to create deployment, you will get an error like before. It is saying that deployment request did not have the git author with access to the project on Vercel. So I have to fix it. So I have to fix the git configuration. I have to use the same email as the author email. So let's go back to my VS Code, and here I will add this line git config user.email, and here I need to copy this email and paste it here and update it in this way. And now here I will add another change, testing 2, so that I could commit with this new author. So let's add commit test, stage it, commit it, and push it, and hopefully it should automatically start deployment after it is live on the GitHub. Now reload it. Yes, this time it detected the change because it came from the allowed author that they are allowing to push any change. So now it is it would be automatically deploying your changes and building it every time you make a commit and push it. So For your case, maybe it is working and you will not face this specific trouble that I faced. But if in case if you face this kind of error, then this is the reason, because of the mismatch of the author email. Your Vercel email has to be exactly same as you have in your commit messages. Okay, you see that this time the username is different and icon is different. Earlier it was different, so keep that in mind. Also, we need to make the same change in my front-end project so that I could avoid this that time, to save my time. Okay, great. Another thing that I want to make change is that we need to set environment variable in the Angular app. If your Angular app needs to know the API URL to call the backend, you might have it currently pointing to the localhost :3000. We should have changed that for production. One easy way is to use the environment file or environment variable. For example, in the actually in latest versions of Angular there are no environment files, so Angular CLI generate environments. So there is a command that you will run and it will automatically generate the files for you. So this is the code. If you generate it, it will generate all of these 3 files. So let's do that. Paste that command and run it, and you would notice that we have the environment.ts and environment.development. So environment.ts is for production and development is for local development. So let's add API URL here in the development, and it would be a localhost HTTP, actually localhost :3000, and let's copy it in the environment.ts, paste it. And now as this is going to be as production, so go back to the Vercel and get the production backend URL. So this is the production backend URL without any port. Okay, great. Now we have to utilize this environment variable everywhere where we are using the hard-coded URL. So we will just search for this URL wherever we are using it. We'll replace it with a new approach. So here, instead of using this, I will use the backticks, and here I will remove it with this environment.api URL. Okay, and similarly here, let me add this part. Okay, remove it, and let's import the environment. Another thing is that we are using development, but we should not mention development here. Just use environment and it should be working. Similarly here, don't mention development here, just keep it as it is. Excellent. Now just to make sure it is working, I will test on the front end. This is my front end reloaded just to make sure that things are still working. If you go to the network, it sent the request on the live URL, but I was expecting it to use the local URL. So okay, actually I think we should keep it .development, but in the production it will automatically revert it to use the production URL. So I think we don't need to worry about that. So I have reverted it back to the .development. Similarly, go to the post service and use the .development. Now if you check, we are getting the course error. The reason is that our server was crashed. Let me run it again, and now it should be working. Reload it, and this time it is working and we got the response. Okay, and if you look at the network header, we are using the local URL. Okay, now let's go back to the front end and make this change and push it. Changes, stage it, commit it, and push it online. Now we have to create another project for the front end. Click on the project. Here I would click on the full stack front end. It has automatically detected that this is an Angular project, and Next.js Vercel already has the framework preset. You don't have to configure. That's mean in the build and output setting, it automatically decided what it is going to use, which output directory it is going to use. If you want to make any change, you can make those changes here, but I guess for now it's fine. Let's try what happens. Deploy it and wait for some time. It may take 1, 2 or 4 minutes, so just give it some time. Okay, the project has been built successfully and you can see the preview already. Continue to the dashboard and it will give you this URL. Click on that and let's try to log in with our email, and I'm sure it will not work. I will explain why. Put the email and password, login failed, undefined. We got the course error that we faced earlier. The reason is that in the front end we are still using the local host. That is incorrect. Okay, I found the reason. The reason was that we should not use the development. Sorry for the mistake. We should keep it as it is. Similarly, in the post service, we should keep it as it is. But in development, it will automatically pick the development environment, not the production one. And you can see if you reload it, you would notice that it is already using the local host. Earlier we hard coded the development environments. That's why in production it was using the development environment. So let's quickly deploy it in the production. When it is built, it will automatically use the production environment variables. So fix, stage it, commit it, and push it. Okay, now let's quickly go to the next Vercel just to observe the deployment. If you go to the deployment, you would notice that it already has triggered the build process, and within short amount of time it would be live. Okay, it is live in 20 seconds. And now if you visit it, actually not this URL, this is a live URL, reload it and add the email, add the password and login. Again I got the error, but I again getting the cross origin error, but this time because of different reasons. So this is the base URL. Copy this URL and let me tell you what is the reason. The reason is that go to the backend, go to the next config. We whitelisted only this domain, but we should have whitelisted this another domain as well. So maybe replace it with the new domain like this, or you may want to add multiple origins. So if you want to add multiple origin, then I guess you will add comma and put the second domain. In this way it will whitelist all of these domains. Okay, but in production I don't recommend to allow whitelist this domain, only keep it. So now let's commit it, fix, commit it, sync it. Okay, and now go back to the Vercel and open the backend project, go to deployment. You would notice that it has started to deploy another build. It is building. Within few seconds it would be live. Okay, it is live now. So now let's try to log in once again, and this time I'm sure it should work. Nope, it is not working. Well, I did not find any solution yet to add multiple origins. So there is a better way, is creating a middleware that will allow you to add the multiple origins, but I may add that in another video for you, that I will cover how to allow multiple origins with the help of the middleware. But for this, to make it quick, I will just remove this second URL and just keep the main production one. So let's see if that works. So stage it, commit it, push it, and wait it. Go to the deployment section once again. Go to the project first. Go to deployment. You would notice that the building process has been started already. Okay, it has been completed. Now let's quickly test it. Click on the login, and again it did not work. I'm really sorry about that. I'm making a mistake. Instead of putting the front-end URL, I was putting the back-end URL. So really sorry about that. We have to go back, and this is the URL that we should whitelist in the backend. Yeah, that was why it was not working. Save it. And I did not test the multiple domains. Maybe that would also work. You may try, but for now I would keep it simple. Fix, commit it, push it. Okay, and wait for it once again. Go to the project, backend project, deployment, and you would notice that deployment has been started. Open that deployment and wait for it. You don't have to open it every time. I just opened it just to show you that what's going on behind the scene. But normally when you put it, push it, commit it, push it, then it would automatically pick the change and will start deployment process. So it is fully automated, no manual work required. Okay, it is live now. Now let's quickly test once more. Click on the login button, and this time it worked perfectly without any error, and it is totally working with the live URLs. Both front-end and backend are on live URL, and you can use them very easily. You can edit. So here you can add XYZ. Click OK and wait, it is updated. Okay, if you reload it, it should still work. Okay, excellent. You may also want a custom domain like your own app. That is also very easy in the Vercel. For example, you can change for the backend project or the front end project. To do that, go to the front end and go to the setting, and here you would find the section domains, and here you can add your own domain by clicking on the add, and you can follow the directions and you will be able to add it. I may record another video that how you can do that. So if you are interested, then you can let me know in the comments below. Well, alright. Congratulations on building a full stack application with Angular, Tailwind CSS, and Next.js. Let's recap what we have done and learned. We installed the necessary tools like Node.js, Angular CLI, etc., and created a structured workspace with separate front-end and back-end projects. We introduced Angular standalone component architecture and Next.js app directory for building modern applications. Then we built the Angular frontend. We built an Angular spa with standalone components for pages and reusable Navbar. We integrated Tailwind CSS for quick, utility-first styling, making our app responsive and clean without writing custom CSS. Angular router was configured for navigation, and we implemented forms for user registration and login. We used Angular HTTP client with an interceptor to consume our API and manage JWT auth on client side. Then we built the backend with Next.js. We developed a Next.js server with serverless API routes. Using Next.js route handlers, we created endpoints for authentication and CRUD operations on posts. We connected the app to a PostgreSQL database and performed SQL queries for data persistence. We implemented JWT Authentication, generating tokens on login and protecting routes by validating those tokens. We used libraries like PG for database access, bcrypt for hashing password, and JSON Web Token for token handling. Throughout, we followed security best practices, hashing passwords, checking auth on protected actions. Then we did the integration. We tied the frontend and backend together. The Angular app communicates with the Next.js API via HTTP request. We ensured the JWT is included in request and the server responds accordingly, thereby establishing a secure authenticated session for the user. We discussed handling of CORS or cross-origin requests and the importance of serving over HTTPS in production for the security. Then we covered the deployment. Finally, we deployed both components to Vercel's cloud. We configured the environment variables for secrets, DB connection, string, and JWT secret, and saw how Vercel can automatically build and deploy our apps. The CI/CD pipeline is in place via Vercel's Git integration. Any push triggers and automatic deployment, making updates seamless. Now our app is live on internet for users to access. In real scenario, you would now thoroughly test the deployed app. Create a new user, log in, create, edit, delete post, and verify the data in the database. Test edge cases like duplicate username, wrong password, expired token, etc. to see if the app handles them gracefully, showing appropriate errors or redirects. Possibly run performance builds, Angular's production build and Next optimized build, and use the tools like Lighthouse to check performance, though SEO is less relevant for an Angular spa that requires login. You might also consider improvements using refresh token or extending the JWT expiration for a better user experience, adding loading indicators in the UI during HTTP calls, more sophisticated error handling on both client and server, using Angular's reactive forms for more control, or adding form validation feedback. Implementing role-based access control if needed, for example, admin versus regular user. Adding unit and integration tests for both front-end and back-end logic. So these are the things that you might consider for improvements. With this knowledge, you can build your own full stack projects or expand this one. We covered a lot of ground, from setting up the development environment to front-end, back-end development, to deploying and automating the workflow. Feel free to rewatch the sections of this tutorial as you code along. Thank you for following the tutorial. I hope you found it useful and comprehensive. Now you have a solid foundation to create a full stack web application with Angular and Next.js. If you found value in this tutorial, then please like and share this video, and also leave any comment if you want to say something or have any suggestion or feedback. Also, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and click on the notification bell icon to get notified for my upcoming videos. Thank you so much for staying with me. Happy coding, and see you in the next video. Goodbye.